Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Love Like Crazy. I'm Stacey, and I'm here with my husband, Jay, and we are just having a great time talking about all kinds of topics important to building a stronger family and marriage. And so we just want to say thank you, first of all, to all of our listeners. We're a couple of months in on this podcast, and we just want to say thank you for joining us. And if you can, just subscribe and comment, especially on YouTube, and leave us some reviews. Let us know how you're liking this podcast. And if there's topics that maybe you would like for us to discuss, let us know. We'd like some feedback from you. And so we're going to go ahead and jump in today on this topic. I know, Jay, that you are very excited about the topic that we're going to discuss today.
Absolutely. I mean, what man would not want to talk about sex?
That's our topic.
That's the topic today. We're going to talk about it in the aspect of sex, love, and rock and roll.
Okay.
And I get it. I know a lot of times people hear, that and they think, oh, wow, boom, chicka, wow, wow, we're going to have a great
Boom,
time
chicka,
today.
wow, wow.
That's
okay.
not the avenue direction that we're going in. Honestly, we want to kind of talk about it in a little bit different way. We want to talk about healthy bedroom life within our marriages. We also want to talk about being able to educate our children sexually.
Okay.
Because sex education in the family really is building a healthy family.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I want to be able to educate my children biblically regarding sex. I don't want the world and I don't want culture educating my children.
Yeah.
And so we got a lot to say about this today. And naturally, sex is wonderful within marriage between husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
And you will hear me talk about that quite a bit. And the reason why is because God, you see all the way back in Genesis chapter 2, God ordained marriage to be shared between husband and wife. And there's a lot of statistics that you look at and you begin to see that society and culture, our spiritual enemy, the devil, is trying to break down the family.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to harm people sexually in the sense of coming in between husband and wife and causing their attention to be distracted from one another and really doing everything that he can to destroy the family in America. And let me share some statistics with you regarding this. Okay. You see that 95% of Americans have been sexually active before they're married. 2/3 of couples admit that they've lived together and been sexually active before marriage. And here's a disturbing statistic based off of that, is that about 50% of those couples wind up in divorce court. The statistics are higher for you to get divorced if you live together before you get married than those who don't cohabitate and choose to abstain and wait to have sexual relations till after they're married. You say, well, what about our within our students? Well, here's another statistic, kind of disturbing. 35%, a little bit more than a third of high school students are sexually active. Statistics have come down a little bit over the last 20 to 30 years regarding that, but they're still high. And it's kind of disturbing. So what we want to be able to do is educate our children. We want to be able to do everything that we can to have a healthy marriage.
Right.
But we also want to do everything that we can to have a healthy family. And I think for us to be able to do that as parents, we need to be able to have the answers for our children that they're looking for.
And don't you think that this has kind of been a topic that's a little taboo? People don't want to talk about it and they hesitate to talk to their children?
Well, I do. I think a lot of times parents don't necessarily know what to tell their children. Right. And we're living in the day and age, like when we were growing up, you just had to talk to your kids about, the birds and the bees, about sex. But now we're in the age of gender confusion. We're in the age of, sexual orientation, all these different things that come up, sexual confusion, to be honest with you. And parents a lot of times just don't know what to tell their kids. And I hate to say this, but by and large, the church has been pretty silent about this. And I know that from the pulpit, we address this topic from time to time. And I always tell our congregation whenever we have a message of this nature, I let them know this is a PG-13 message.
Right.
I want to make sure that it's age appropriate. But the truth of the matter is church has been silent about it. But why would we not want to talk about something that God created? Yeah. A lot of times people look at sex as though it's dirty, but the devil didn't create sex. God created sex. What the enemy wants to do is he wants to take what God created and he wants to twist it. He wants to pervert it. He wants to use it to cause division and destruction. And so what we want to do is we want to turn to the Word of God to look at healthy bedroom life and educating our children biblically to where it will build their life in a strong and a healthy way.
Yeah, because don't you think that children are just, if we don't teach them as parents, they're going to find out about this
Oh yeah, your
somehow.
kids are talking about it.
And they're learning things younger and younger these days.
Yeah, used to the statistic when you want to talk about our kids finding stuff out, the average boy in America has his first. Now, this statistic was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Average boy in America has his first pornographic experience at around the age 11. It's actually dropped since then from age 11 to between 10 and 11.
That's alarming.
It's coming down. So your kids are finding stuff out. They're talking about stuff, smartphones, social media, all these different avenues that kids have readily accessible. Back in the day, if I wanted to look at pornography, I had to go across town to a trashy little store to get a Playboy magazine. But now, with a smartphone, your kids have easy access to pornographic material 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And it's our job as parents to protect them the best way that we can from that.
The industry, the pornographic industry is trying to do, it's rapidly expanding. Now, these statistics are about 2 years old, but the U.S. porn industry averages about $11 billion a year. Average boy, like I've already shared, views porn between ages 10 and 11. And the porn sites actually have more visitors on an annual basis than Twitter, Netflix, and Amazon combined.
Wow.
So when you think about all that, it's disturbing what culture is trying to do. So that's a lot of information. I know I'm throwing a lot of information out there for y'all, but let's talk about healthy bedroom life within marriage.
Okay.
Because like I said, a lot of times we don't talk about this in church because it's taboo. It's like people say, well, that's dirty. That's whatever. And if God created it, it's not dirty. It's something that's beautiful. And you see all the way back, Genesis chapter 2, from that point forward, God has a lot to say about sex. You get into the New Testament, you see places like 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul talks about the woman giving authority over her body to the man giving authority over his body to the wife. In other words, to take care of one another, to be stewards of one another's sexual needs, to enjoy each other. Every time that I do premarital counseling, and you've discovered this whenever we're counseling with couples,
yes,
people always say, well, where in the Bible is it talking about these things? And one of my favorite books to teach off of is Song of Songs, Song of Solomon. It actually goes by those two different names depending on what translation you're looking in. But it's a poetic book in the Old Testament where you have King Solomon who falls in love with this woman who's known as the Shulamite woman. And you see all the way from their courtship to their marriage to them falling in love. And it's a pretty risque book.
I was going to say, it's a little spicy.
I like to say it's a spicy burrito.
It's a spicy burrito. It is.
It's one of those books that when you read it and look at it, get a good translation and you read through it, you find out that God really ordained sex between a husband and his wife to be enjoyed.
And that it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. So somebody might ask the question, why is this such a powerful topic? Why is sex such a powerful thing? And the reason why is because sex is physical, it's emotional, and it's even spiritual. As people, we have a body, we have a spirit which lives on for eternity, and then we have our soulish realm, which is our mind, our will, our emotions. And whenever you have sexual relations with somebody, you're opening up your mind, your will, and your emotions to that person. In essence, probably the best way to say it is you're giving a part of yourself to that person. You're sharing your body with them, but you are giving a part of yourself to that person. And so that's why God ordained it to be shared in marriage, because the only person, as Genesis says, that the two become one, the man and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. The way that we feel no shame, the way that we are to enjoy life and sharing ourselves is within marriage, because you're to be more transparent, you're to be more open with the one that God has ordained for you to have a covenant with, to share life with, which is your spouse.
Right. I love that word covenant as well. And so, you're talking about this, and it reminds me of back in the day, we were youth pastors, and you taught a lesson to the teenagers one time where you passed around a can of Coke.
Yeah,
remember that?
It was a 20-ounce bottle. It was a plastic bottle.
Okay, and you passed it around, and you let all these different ones take a sip of that Coke.
Yep.
Elaborate on that illustration that you gave.
Took the Coke, everybody's taking a swig of it, and you finally get down to where it's, maybe the last, quarter of the bottle.
Which is really spit.
And it's full of just backwash.
Backwash, there you go.
And I'm like, okay, who wants to, have this back, everybody was like, that's, no, I don't want anything to do with that. And the illustration was, don't pass yourself around and share yourself with all these different individuals, because you get to the place to where you're just, you look at your life and you've shared yourself with all these people, and don't give away what God ordained to be shared with one person, your spouse. And it's kind of alarming when you think about that 29% of men in America have had 15 or more sexual partners. 9% of women have had sex with 15 or more men. In other words, we're sharing ourselves with person after person after person. And after we give away so much of our emotionally and all this kind of stuff, then the enemy likes to come in and put shame and guilt and all these different things on our lives. So don't share yourself. Save yourself for your spouse. And here's what I'm saying. Enjoy having sex with your spouse.
Absolutely.
Paul writes about this in 1 Corinthians about sharing of yourselves one another, being stewards over one another's bodies. And I think that what really leads to a healthy bedroom life is a couple of things. First of all, good communication.
Yes.
Everything comes back to communication. And I know I'm throwing a lot of information out here. I'm kind of hogging the microphone today.
That's okay. We're listening.
Okay.
This is good.
And because we've both counseled a lot of people through, but I've talked with a lot of men about some of these different things regarding pornography or stuff throughout the years. And when you think about within marriage, if you're going to have good relations, healthy bedroom life, you want good communication. What that means is share your likes, your dislikes, your wants, your desires, all these things with your spouse. The only person that you should be having sex talk with is your spouse, your husband or your wife. You should be not talking to the guys on the job site. Ladies, you should not be talking to having a girls' night out. Y'all, go hang out and eat dinner together, and you're talking. No, don't talk about all that kind of stuff. Hebrews chapter 13 talks about keeping the marriage bed pure. And that means, it says, I'm going to just read it to you. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. And it's one translation says, honor the marriage bed. Now, I like that because we need to honor it by not stepping outside of the marriage. I think all of us can agree with that. But we also need to honor the marriage bed with what comes out of our mouth.
Right.
Okay. We need to always be honoring to our spouse, not share tidbits of our bedroom life with other people because you violate that trust. Your spouse, when you violate that trust, if they find out, it's hard to regain that trust.
Absolutely.
And the other spouse can feel somewhat violated by that. So good communication, don't have sex talk with anybody outside the marriage. And then I would also say, when you look at things like Song of Solomon, we say it's kind of funny. It's a risque book. It's a spicy book, but it's telling us also to be, innovative in the bedroom. In other words, be romantic.
Yes.
Look for ways to take care of your spouse's needs. Don't get caught up. Well, I like to say it like this. Don't get caught up in a rut. A rut is nothing more than a really long grave. And so you get caught up in the same old look, same old, wardrobe, same old place, same old sex, all this kind of stuff. And I would tell you this, that you need to romance one another. You need to, take trips together, get out on the town for a night, go eat at a modest price restaurant, get a hotel room, and just enjoy one another, because that's how God intended for us to enjoy taking care of one another's needs sexually.
I think you can do little things to lead into that. Like I think a few times I've left you like a sweet little love note written in lipstick on the mirror, things like that.
That does help rev up the engine.
Yeah, there you go. So be creative in that.
Be creative in that. I like to say it like this: look for ways to romance one another. And ladies, don't always look for the man to be, you look for ways to romance him. And then guys, don't always look for the wife to be the one to, you do your part, make dinner reservations. Here's one of the things that I love to do for you that I think is great is I will go buy a blank card for you. Everybody's always looking for the right Hallmark card. I like to get blank cards, and then I'll write a letter to you on the inside of the card.
Right.
And I give it to you. And I think that always speaks to your heart.
It does.
So, everybody always, wants to talk about sex, but it's like, what are you actually doing to take care of your wife's needs that lead to that?
Yes.
Okay. Are you speaking to her in a way that she feels your love for her. There's a very popular book. This isn't in any of my notes, but there's a very popular book out that's called The Five Love
Oh, you're going to
Languages.
talk about the five love
Well,
languages. Okay.
not in depth, but and in that book it talks about being able to feel your spouse's love. So how
Yes.
are you speaking their
Their
love
love
language?
language, right.
And there's different ways to be able to do that: writing notes, giving cards, gifts, acts of service, all these different things. And
Words
I
of
think that
encouragement.
those are the things that lead us to being happy and having a
Mhm.
healthy bedroom life.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the love language is if you can identify what your spouse's love language is, you're filling their love tank,
Okay.
and that will lead to a healthy bedroom life.
Okay. Well, you're the guru on the love languages.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another
Okay.
episode and talk about that down the road. But what I kind of come down to is this: everybody, I don't understand why my spouse is not responding to me sexually. And the question is this: are you taking care of their needs outside of the bedroom? In other words, are you making them feel your love by speaking to them in a way that honors them and respects them?
Yes.
Are you serving them? Are you helping around the house? Are you washing the dishes? There's a great book that I'm going to recommend to you by Dr. Kevin Leman, and it's called Sex Begins in the Kitchen. And every man, the book's geared towards men, but what's great about this book is the title's catching because every man's like, woohoo, in the kitchen, what? But the book really is geared towards if you want to have a healthy bedroom life, then you need to learn to wash the dishes, take out the trash, find ways to serve your wife, because that opens her heart up to you in a greater way. And so that is what leads us to the place where we have a healthy bedroom life. Now let's turn the page on this, because we'll talk about educating our children.
Okay.
I can talk to you about educating boys.
Right.
We did not have girls. And what age did you decide to just kind of turn the boys over to me?
Oh goodness, most probably from reading. There was a book out back in the day when we were raising our kids. It was by Dr. James Dobson, called Raising Up Boys, and it gave out a lot of statistics about different things, just like you've given out in this show. And through reading that book, I realized that at a certain age, probably closer to age 12, there's just certain things, especially when it comes to the sex talk and so forth, that I was to just kind of, you need to talk to your dad. Yeah. Push them, let dad deal with some things. Now, I know that that's not always the case. There are single moms out there that are having to have the talk with their sons. So, but give us some input on that.
Well, we talk about taboo,
that.
Back in the day, whenever I was being brought up, my mom and dad did a great job in a lot of different areas. We've talked about that before, but when it came to educating me about sex, that was a topic. It's just taboo. You don't really talk about it. And so I remember my mom, when I think I was 12 years old, coming in my bedroom, kind of thrusting a book into my hands that was basically coming apart. I think it was the same book her parents gave her. It was written like in the 1930s.
Oh my goodness.
But it was a book about, the birds and the bees. And so I'm reading through this book, 12-year-old boy. I don't know who do I ask questions to? I'm like taking the book, turning it upside down, looking at it sideways, like, what's going on here? And I was more confused after reading that book than I was before.
Poor thing.
And so I wanted to make sure that with my boys, because in this day and age, they're talking about it. And I remember as junior high and high school, having to kind of just pick up on a lot of stuff from being around other guys and hearing them talk about stuff. And I said, you know what? I want to be able to educate my sons in a way that is godly, that is biblically based, and that is going to be healthy for their life and for their marriage one day. So
you had to decide to take the initiative on that.
I did. I took the initiative. And dads, I'm going to tell you, I know it's something that you may not be comfortable doing, but you are called to be the spiritual leader of your household.
Yes.
If you don't educate your children about
somebody
sex,
else will.
Somebody else will. Culture will. A buddy in the locker room is going to tell them things. The good old boys club is going to educate them. And trust me on this, it's something that will be destructive for their life. So you want to be able to educate your children in a way that's going to build them in a godly way. So you and I had the discussion about this, and we knew it was time. Tyler was first, Bryce was second, Reese was third. And we started having the conversations as they were leading into about the sixth grade. So I'm going to say probably around age 10-ish. There were several different talks throughout the years regarding sex, and it was always age appropriate.
And you spoke with them individually.
Individually. Whenever Tyler was around the age of 10, I took him. He and I spent some time together, just dad and son, father-son time. And I talked with him and educated him to the level where I felt like he needed to be. That was when we were going to start talking about things that like masturbation and things of that nature, lust, how the enemy's going to try to come against your mind in these different areas. Then we get to about age 11 or 12. We're actually going to start talking about the birds and the bees and how God has brought, sex to us, given it to us as a gift to be shared within marriage. We talked about pornography around age 11, some of these different. And so we had several different talks throughout the years. And then there was Bryce, and then there was Reese eventually. Now, straight up, if you talk with my youngest son and talk with my oldest son, I probably did a much better job with the last one than I did with the first one.
Well, you had a little practice.
I was nervous. I'm like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. And so I hope I helped him and I didn't confuse him. But, I would just tell you, don't be afraid to approach this topic. Don't be afraid to talk to your children about this, because if you don't, the world and culture will. And we live in the day and age of, like I said, sexual confusion, sexual orientation. There's all these different things where there's schools, governments trying to educate our children sexually. They're telling them that they can pick their gender. Well, the Bible deals with this directly back in Genesis, male and female. When you are born as a boy, you are a boy. When you are born as a girl, you're born as a girl. That's how God has created you and made you. So don't let culture erode that. Don't let culture lie to you and tell you, well, if you're feeling this, you just have to go with it. Your emotions will lie to you, but the Holy Spirit, the presence of the Lord, will never lie to you. He'll never lead you astray. He wants to lead you in what is best for your life. So don't get caught up in what culture wants to tell you. Stand in truth on the Word of God, and mom and dad have biblical-based answers. And don't be afraid to broach these topics with your kids, because if you don't, culture will. And so educate them in a proper way. Talk to them about pornography and all these different things. And then there's tools that you can get on their phone, on the computer. There's filters, but trust me, there's ways around those filters. So I'm an advocate of not giving your children smartphones. I know that culture is going to tell you, hey, you got to have smartphone, from age, 3 forward. Our kid, I remember Tyler, his first phone was actually a little slider phone. He was so mad because it was not a smartphone, but it was a phone that we could keep, close track on. So all the boys, they did not get a smartphone until they were, I think it was older, 15-ish, somewhere around in there. And then we did our best to be able to monitor those phones and talk to them about the damaging effects, pornography and all these different things. Exactly. And so talk to them, educate them. And that's the key thing. Communicate with your kids. Here's another thing that's key. Answer questions. You may not have the answer to their questions, but find out the answers. Yeah. I always tell the boys, so you can ask me anything you want. If I don't know the answer for it, we'll discover it together. And so we would dig into the Word of God. We might do a little bit of research and find out. And then if you don't know, get outside counsel. Go to your pastor. Go to their student pastor. Talk to somebody who's a mature believer who can help you answer these questions, especially if you're a single mom.
Yes.
I would say that it might be smart to get your student pastor involved if you're a single mom, to help educate your boys as they're growing up. Because a lot of single moms, I don't know how to talk to my son about this. Well, talk to that student pastor, talk to a trusted, mature believer, and they can probably help you out.
Well, when you mentioned that about asking questions, that reminds me of when my mom tried to explain, some things to me. I didn't receive a book per se. She just said, well, ask me what kind of questions and hopefully I'll have the answers. And bless her heart, she said, and if I don't have the answers, well, maybe we'll look it up in the encyclopedia, because back in the day, there was no internet. It was looking things up in the encyclopedia. So I think I appreciate at least her willingness to be as transparent as she could be with me.
That's what you call vintage Google.
Yes, that's exactly
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yes.
Now, trust me in this, mom, dad, if you go to Google and you type in how to educate my child on sex, you're going to get a whole lot of stuff. So that may not be the best direction to go. I would just tell you that you can probably research. There's some great books out there to be able to talk to your kids regarding this topic. Here's some good
faith-based books.
Faith-based books. Here's some good books for you within your marriage, because we do want to delve off into that a little bit. We talk about sex. We talk about a healthy bedroom life between husband and wife. We talk about educating our children in a healthy, biblically based way. But I want to talk to you about love, because we need to teach our children. This podcast is based off 1 Corinthians 13, where it talks about, it describes to us what love looks like, what it is. The last verse, these three remain: faith, hope, love, but the greatest of these is love. We need to teach our children to walk in the love of Christ, and they need to see that between husband and wife.
Yes.
And I would say that probably the greatest thing, and dads or husbands, I'm going to tell you, you have to lead the charge in this, that you need to teach your children what it looks like to respect your wife and to honor your wife. I have in the past episodes talked about Ephesians chapter 5. Everybody wants to focus on the wife submitting to the husband, but they don't necessarily want to focus on the part about the husband giving of himself like Christ gave himself for us. Then the very last portion that talks about loving your wife, the wife respecting her husband. Mm-hmm. And I think that there should be enough love and respect between husband and wife to go around on both sides of the equation.
Yes, I agree.
So I think that is definitely the direction that we need to teach our children. So we need to make sure that as we're communicating with one another, as we're talking back and forth, husband and wife, that we're respectful in the way that we talk to one another. Another area I want to hit is that we need to teach our children, especially dads, towards our sons. We need to teach them not to objectify women, that women are not an object that are here on this earth just to gratify your sexual needs, okay? And that's where you can talk to them about the subject of lust and overcoming lust. And that if they don't get a hold of that, the enemy can use that against them, and they get caught up in all pornography, masturbation, all these different things. So if you teach them in an appropriate, healthy way that God has given you these desires to be shared with your wife one day, and don't stir up, don't wake up those desires. In the book Song of Solomon, it actually talks about that, about not waking up that desire before the time is there. And so I think it's appropriate to talk to your kids about these things and really to teach them to honor, respect, women.
Yes.
And it starts within the home.
Absolutely. And I think also we tried to focus on teaching our boys how to be a gentleman, opening the door for ladies. I know I would always talk to them about how important it is to, there's this certain guy talk, when a bunch of guys get together, they kind of banter back and forth. That's not always appropriate in front of girls. And sometimes I would say, I'm a girl, so we don't talk like that around girls.
Yeah, hold your tongue in front of the women.
Yeah.
Don't
be respectful and
tone down the testosterone in front of the ladies.
Right.
Okay? I did teach the boys about opening doors for ladies. My mom growing up, she'd smack me in the back of the head if I didn't hold the door open for a lady. So that's something that I always taught. I open the door for you. I try to open the car door for you. It's a way of honoring and respecting you. So I think that's appropriate to be able to teach our children. And dads, if you have a daughter, you need to teach her how she should be treated by a man. Don't allow her to be at the place where, a young man is going to talk down to her, be disrespectful to her, put his hands on her. Let me just tell you straight up, if I had a daughter and some young man put his hands on her, I'd probably wind up in jail.
Yeah, that'd be
it'd be a bad situation.
Ready to fight.
So you need to teach your daughter how she should be treated. And I love these daddy-daughter dances that they do and all this kind of stuff, daddy-daughter dates, all that kind of stuff. You need to teach her how she should be treated.
Yes.
Now, I will say this much. This might be a little bit controversial whenever I say this, but a lot of parents are they're teaching their daughter, oh, you're a princess and all. And I get all that. But don't set expectations there that no man's ever going to be able to meet
true.
As well. There are in reality, there are some things within her that only her relationship with Christ will be able to fulfill within her. And so
That's a great point.
I just say this, you don't raise a spoiled little brat that thinks that, she's such a princess that when she gets married one day, she's a holy nightmare for her husband. Bring her feet down to earth, teach her about being a Proverbs 31 woman. And I think that's probably somewhat appropriate. So don't raise sons to be monsters to objectify women, but teach them to be gentlemen. Don't raise daughters to be holy terrors, but teach them, feet on the earth to be a virtuous, godly woman. So anything you want to add to that?
There you go. That all sounds great.
I'm throwing a lot of information. Let's talk about rock and roll.
Oh,
because
okay.
I said it's sex, love, rock and roll, and that's jokingly referring to that because this is the fun aspect of this. I've already talked about enjoying each other within the bedroom. What about enjoying each other out of the
Just
bedroom?
in general. Yeah, just having fun together, being best friends, spending time together.
I will say this: the reason why I love having you as my best friend is because I love spending time with you. I love doing
Hmm.
stuff with you.
And we spend a lot of time together.
We do. We go out on dates all the time. We eat lunch together. I'll go in your office and bug you sometimes at the church. We go to the camp together. We
Yes.
spend a lot. This past year, I actually talked her into going hunting with me one time. She went
Hmm.
out in the duck blind
Hmm.
and sat there and was like, hurry up. But do things together.
So,
We talk about writing notes and all these things, but I'm just going to tell you, romance each other,
yeah.
date each other, take little trips together. If you're newly married, you don't have a lot of money. You don't have to spend a lot of money.
No.
You remember what we did on our first anniversary?
We went to Natchez.
We did go to Natchez, but before we went to Natchez, we didn't have a whole lot of money because we were taking that Natchez trip. And I went and picked up Taco Bell because on our first date, we went to Taco Bell.
That's right.
And I got out our fine china that we got as a gift.
I
and I
remember
set
that.
the table. There were candles, there were flowers, and you came in from work and we had a fine Taco Bell meal.
That
and it
was
cost
wonderful.
me about $5.
Yes.
So dating, you don't have to have a lot of money to date each other and enjoy.
Well, be
each
creative
other.
in those things, you know?
Absolutely. Just you've got to be able to find ways to continually romance each other. And even to this day, look, we're at the stage in life where we're empty nesting. The kids have moved out. There's nobody in this world. And I'm not just saying this just because, I'm a pastor, just because we're on a podcast. Yeah, there's nobody in this world I'd rather spend time with than my wife. And I hope you feel that way.
Back at you.
Okay. Thank you so much. But have fun together, laugh together, watch movies together, cut up together, and enjoy spending that time together because that translates to the bedroom. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Your kids, we're talking about having fun together, but have fun as a family.
Yes.
This is not just within the marriage. Your kids ought to be able to have a lot of fun at the house as well. When our kids were growing up, I liked the fact that our house was the house that all the kids, they loved bringing their friends to our house.
They did. They brought their friends over. And then we always planned movie nights and family time like that. And so they looked forward to the weekends because on Friday nights, we would let them stay up. We'd watch movies together and they could make a tent or a pallet on the floor and hang out. And that was something that was a lot of fun that we would do.
And we always got Gaddy's Pizza as well.
Gaddy's Pizza, absolutely.
So
we still love that.
It was things like that we had fun together.
Yes.
We'd take little trips together as a family. It didn't cost a whole lot of money, but it was always fun. And we love spending time together as a family. Stacey and I love spending time together as a married couple, but we love spending time together as a family. And that translates even over to today because we do family night. The kids come over, bring the grandbabies, and we love it.
That's right. And everybody loves getting together. And if we go too long without a family night, somebody's calling saying, hey, when are we going to get together?
Usually
usually when they're out of groceries and they're like, hey,
Dad,
are y'all cooking something? Can we come over? Yeah. But they won't necessarily admit it, but they miss each other and they like to get together.
And I think that all goes back to us having fun as a family. So have fun with your spouse, have fun with your family, enjoy life together. And all these things translate to a healthy marriage, a healthy family. And that's what this podcast is all about, is really doing everything that we can to help build your marriage and build your family in a healthy, godly way. Yeah. And I just want to thank you so much for taking this journey with us. And appreciate you guys listening to all these episodes. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, and hopefully this information that's been given out, this has been helpful, help you grow and help you to prepare to lay a stronger foundation for your family. And that's what we're all about, building a stronger marriage and a stronger family.
All right, so thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast. I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is Love Like Crazy.